we're going to get started on this, and we are going to start with the quarterbacks. So, this has been a position at Iowa State under Matt Campbell that has had a kind of it was rocky early because the quarterback position was just not well recruited. It wasn't particularly stable when Matt Campbell got here. There was not a clear cut starter or a clear cut future of the program. So it took a couple years to get there. Really just one and a half. But since the middle of the 2017 season, when Kyle Kempt went down to Norman, Oklahoma, and beat Baker Mayfield on the road, um, ever since then, Iowa State has had pretty remarkable stability at the quarterback position. Obviously, the main reason for that is Brock Purdy and now Rocco Becht. Brock Purdy started I think the fourth or fifth game of his freshman season and played every single snap, played every single game, not quite every single snap, but every single game, started every single game from then on till the end of his senior season, and was the best quarterback in school history. Everybody knows who Brock Purdy is at this point. I don't need to explain to you who Brock Purdy is. But then you follow that up. You have 1 year of Hunter Deckers, where he's just kind of either you can see the raw talent there, but it just the mental side of the game never really clicked. It never caught up to his physical attributes. And then you have the whole gambling thing comes out, and he just kind of falls out of favor with the program and transfers to Iowa Western, where he has a couple good seasons and now is currently an NFL draft prospect. Then, so in 2023, as a redshirt freshman, Rocco Becht, son of former West Virginia tight end and former Rams NFL tight end, St. Louis Rams tight end Anthony Becht, comes in as a redshirt freshman and has one of the best freshman seasons in school history and frankly in Big 12 football history. Is efficient, does a nice job commanding the offense. He doesn't always, there's times where he still acts like a freshman. He throws a bad ball here or there, but he kept his turnovers down and really just kind of game managed Iowa State to a pretty respectable season, and one that especially that I think exceeded the expectations of a lot of people because of the gambling probe kind of upsetting the apple cart a little bit as far as the off season, the vibes of the off season, which I know is kind of a nebulous phrase to use, but you lose your starting quarterback, you lose a defensive lineman, you lose a couple other guys. And things just there's a kind of a dark cloud hanging over the program. So to have a redshirt freshman come in and really just have an awesome season, a very good, efficient season. And I would say won a decent chunk of games, and he got better as the season went on. You really couldn't ask for any more as far as him as a redshirt freshman. So you come into this season. Actually the interesting part about that quarterback battle too was there was a thought because there was a thought that Rocco might not start because coming into the 2023 season, Iowa State had a true freshman on the roster named JJ Cole, who was a mid 4-star recruit, one of the best recruits in the history of the state of Iowa, especially one of the best quarterback recruits, came in, and he was a true freshman. And people didn't really know how game ready he was, but they knew he was a mid 4-star guy. So very highly touted guy that had offers to go all over the place. Was an elite 11 guy. He's like 6'5", 6'6", huge guy, big frame. Didn't really know exactly how ready he was, but you go into that season and there's a thought that JJ Cole is going to potentially take that starting spot. But as we got closer and closer to the season, it became more and more apparent that Rocco Becht was just going to get he's going to get the nod because he'd been in the program for a year. He was more familiar with the playbook and was just more ready to play. And we had really not seen basically any of him up to that point. I don't even know if he might have taken a couple snaps during his redshirt year, but for the most part had played essentially zero football up to that point in front of Iowa State fans' eyes. So a little bit of concern, obviously, when you're starting a freshman, but frankly, you didn't have any other options. You either had a true freshman or a redshirt freshman, and that's just kind of what it was. Rocco on the job, had a great season. It was never in doubt that he was going to keep the job and run away with it. So now you're coming into 2024, this past season, where Rocco is a redshirt sophomore, and he is expected to take a nice jump forward and really cement himself as a top tier quarterback in the conference and become nationally prominent. because he was showing a lot of the same attributes that um a young Brock Purdy did, I would say, especially like 20 like Rocco's freshman season looked fairly similar to Brock's 2019 season, so his sophomore season. 2018 Brock was fairly chaotic. He was pump faking 5 yards downfield and faking guys out. He was somewhat chaotic. He was really good, but he was somewhat chaotic his freshman year, and then his sophomore season, which was his most productive season statistically, um, he was much more calm in the pocket, not doing as much goofy stuff. But then you get to Rocco's sophomore season, 2024. It starts out with a bang. First play of the game, they, he throws a deep bomb to Jalen Knoll, who catches it in traffic for like 60 something yards, and it was a great play. He started off the season really well, but then you get it's kind of an interesting. The 2024 season had this whole storyline here where you have all these injuries that start piling up, especially on defense. And while that doesn't, it's not Rocco getting injured, it's not quarterbacks getting injured, it's not even like offensive line, it's not the people around him getting injured. But when the defense is getting so banged up, you're having to win games less on the back of your defense and more on the back of your offense. And as the season goes on and they're 6-0, they're 7-0, and they're in the top 10, injuries keep piling up. You have a bye week. You have a bye week right before you play UCF, and everyone's like, okay, this is our chance to get healthy. We're 7-0. We made it to the bye week undefeated. You've got a UCF team that's kind of struggling right now. You can get a little bit healthy. You go into UCF, and UCF starts punching you in the mouth in the running game. They are moving the ball downfield with really not even trying to throw the ball. They're running read options with a couple different quarterbacks. They're giving out the obviously defense a lot of problems. Not only that, Morocco is now because the defense isn't necessarily just holding the UCF offense back. Rocco is starting to try to do too much, and he throws not one but two pick sixes to Central Florida throughout this game. And Iowa State is in deep, deep trouble. They're down a couple scores going into the fourth quarter, and then all of a sudden, the light switches on, and we find out that fourth quarter Rocco is that if you had to choose between having fourth quarter Rocco or fourth quarter Brock Purdy, you're taking fourth quarter Rocco. And frankly, there's not a lot of quarterbacks in college football that I don't think Iowa State fans would have taken over fourth quarter Rocco back. If the game's on the line, you want Rocco back on your team because that dude is unbelievably clutch. In that game, in that UCF game, multiple times he tucks it and runs, picks up 10, 15 yards on the ground, runs around people, runs through people, just picking up really tough first downs to keep the drive moving. Then they eventually, the drive is capped off after Rocco runs a QB keeper into the end zone and finishes the drive off, then runs another QB keeper to get the 2-point conversion to go up 3, and then they obviously win that game. But as fun as that game was, and as fun as like monumental as that fourth quarter drive was, what we didn't know at the time was that game was sort of a harbinger of what was kind of to come for the rest of the regular season, where you get these performances where Rocco is kind of inconsistent or a little bit turnover prone for the first 3 quarters of a game. And then when the game's close, late, then all of a sudden he turns it on and he turns into he turns into Joe Montana. Actually, not Joe Montana. Joe Montana couldn't run like Rocco can, but uh, but he turns into this really super efficient runner. He's throwing good passes. He's making really tough runs and doing a really great job just keeping the ball moving downfield. But it was kind of one of those things where you appreciate the heroics in the fourth quarter, but if he had not thrown 2 pick sixes before that, you didn't need the heroics. So it was a lot of up and down performances for Rocco. And a lot of that was because he was sort of having to play a little bit of hero ball just to make up for the fact that the defense was just gassed and completely drained. They were so banged up at linebacker, at safety, on the defensive line, that they were hanging on to do their best they can, but the offense was going to have to win those games for him. So Rocco kind of at times forced the ball too much. Some of the play calling didn't do him a ton of favors, where you're making him throw like 3-yard out routes or 5-yard out routes to the wide side of the field, which is one of the hardest throws in football for a quarterback. Is to just get enough zip on that so that way you can get it outside without leaving it low enough where a corner can jump it and take it to the house, which is exactly what Central Florida did. First them a couple times, but it was there was really that it was not just interceptions that he was throwing, but it was pick sixes. Or they were kept turning into touchdowns. All in all, Rocco has a good 2024 season, but it's just the sudden flip into being being turnover prone, frankly, in the second half of the season. I don't think that's a long term pattern, but it's hard to say because right now all we have to go on is that he was playing a little bit of hero ball to try to make up for the fact that the defense was so banged up. Now that the defense is healthy and you got some other playmakers around you, does he feel the need to try to play hero ball as much? You wouldn't think so, but the main point for Rocco is to going in next season is to just cut down on the turnovers and make sure that you're not giving the team, and especially if you're going to turn it over, I guess, don't put it in a position where the other team can run it back for a touchdown and get free points off of you. So, but all that to be said, that I expect Rocco to be very good this year. I mean, he's no doubt the starter. But I expect him to be very good this year, and I expect him to take a step forward. And I think he's capable of doing that. He's what Iowa State wants in their quarterback. Backing him up this season is going to be Connor Moberly, who was a true freshman last year from Southeast Polk, and who we found out essentially that he jumped JJ Cole in the depth chart too. So JJ Cole, the former mid 4-star guy, was now not even the backup. In his limited snaps, his freshman season, he looked jumpy. He didn't look comfortable in the pocket. Sometimes he ran it a little too quickly. Just didn't look like it looked like the game was too fast for him. And then eventually, then you come into this season and now you've got Connor Moberly taking the backup snaps instead of JJ Cole. So you're like, well, okay, so JJ is probably going to be transferring out, and transfer out JJ did. That was not unexpected. I think everybody knew that was coming. As soon as we started seeing Connor Moberly get backup snaps ahead of JJ, we knew that was coming. I believe he ended up at Appalachian State. So, hopefully that works out for him. He deserves it. He deserves an opportunity to play, but it's kind of one of those where he just got he just got stuck behind a good player. And that's just what it was. Even if he was the backup, you're still waiting for Rocco to be done. And, assuming Rocco stays through next season, stays through his senior season, JJ's got one more year to play. And in this age of college football, that's just not how it works. Guys don't sit on the bench for 4 years and then wait to play and just get 1 year as a senior to play. That's just not how college football works. And that's okay. JJ is certainly welcome to go, he was certainly welcome to go pursue playing, opportunities to get more playing time. I don't know what Appalachian State's QB situation looks like. I would assume he's going there with the expectation that he can compete to be a starter, but that was just not really in the cards for him at Iowa State, sans a bunch of injuries. And part of the reason also there, and this is kind of the last little section of our quarterbacks here, is that they brought in a new guy in Alex Mansky, who is a high 3-star recruit, I believe. Was an Elite 11 quarterback out of Algona, Iowa. So getting another in-state kid. He's got a really interesting skill set. I think he's got the right size for it. I'm going to take a couple peeks at his huddle tape here. This is just his junior season. He had elbow surgery this past season. So don't think he'll be throwing in spring practice or anything like this, but he's got good prototypical size. Like to see it. His mechanics are pretty good. His footwork looks nice. Throws a nice deep ball there, right in stride. Didn't underthrow the guy at all. You watch him. He seems some good elusiveness there. Now, granted, the deal with high school guys is always what does their high school their competition tell you? Because you get these guys that pretty much every Division I athlete in general, any athlete that's good enough to play in the Power 5 is going to look really, really good in high school. But if you're looking at these throws, especially if you look at that last one, it's not like he's it's not like he's running over people, running past people. I mean, if you look at this throw here, this is a throw that is in Iowa State's scheme. Just a guy running up the seam, from a top, like a tight end spot, a slot spot, and just look at this throw right there. I mean, just perfectly right in the breadbasket, right in stride. I mean, that's the kind of throw that Iowa State is going to ask its quarterbacks to make. So when you're watching this tape and you look at Alex Mansky and say, "This is a really interesting guy," he makes that's an RPO action to the seam. That's a very common throw in Iowa State's offense. Look right here again. He's moving around. He's elusive. He's not necessarily going to be burn you with his legs, but does a good job extending the play. Finds a guy, and this is a guy I'm really excited about. I think this is a guy that's going to be competing for that starting spot with Connor Moberly in 2027. I'm really excited about this guy. So when you look at the case of like JJ Cole, this got to be a sticky situation for JJ because he was just going to be stuck behind Rocco for another couple of years, and then in 2027 he was going to have to compete with not only Connor Moberly but Alex Mansky, who will have been in the program for 2 years at that point and will be a redshirt sophomore. So it is a tough spot. Don't blame JJ for leaving at all. But currently I have a very positive outlook on the quarterback position for Iowa State right now.